South Korean officials held 2-hour-long tariff negotiations with their U.S. counterparts on Thursday in their latest efforts to narrow the gap on Seoul's $350 billion investment in Washington, ahead of the APEC leaders meeting taking place in South Korea later this month. The economy is recovering from a first-half downturn on the back of the government's stimulus coupon program, according to the finance ministry. The country also added 312,000 jobs last month, and its fastest year-on-year growth in 19 months. Talks are underway between South Korea and Cambodia to bring home nearly 60 Koreans detained there over job scams or other crimes. Seoul aims to repatriate them by the end of the week. We begin with updates from Cambodia, where crimes targeting South Korean nationals continue to draw concerns. A government task force led by Second Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jin-ah is in Cambodia to speed up the repatriation of Korean detainees there and to ensure the safety of Korean nationals in the Southeast Asian country. For more on this, we are joined on the line by our reporter Ejae. Ejae, it seems we do have an update on the repatriation schedule for the Koreans detained in Cambodia. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right, Tommy. National Security Advisor Ri Song-nak held a briefing on Friday and said a charter flight is being prepared to bring back the Koreans currently held by Cambodian authorities. Both sides are working for the flight to depart around 2 a.m. on Saturday local time from Phnom Penh. A team of Korean police officers has already left Incheon and will accompany the detainees on board. As most of those returning are criminal suspects connected to job scam operations, they will have to go through the proper legal procedures upon arriving in Korea. We also added that the government's on-site response team in Phnom Penh will hold a separate media briefing before the charter flight departs, and that consultations with Cambodian officials have been proceeding smoothly. This development comes just a day after Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet expressed deep regret over the recent torture and death of a Korean college student and pledged to intensify efforts to send the Korean detainees back home.
So more than 60 Koreans will be home soon. Now, before there was another briefing earlier in the day regarding the emergency removal of online recruitment ads, luring people to Cambodia, right?
Yes, that's right, Tommy. Lee Kyu-yeon, Senior Presidential Secretary for Public Relations, said President Ejae has ordered an emergency crackdown on the illegal job postings that lure Koreans abroad.
President Lee has ordered the Korea Communications Commission, the Korea Communications Standards Commission, and the National Police Agency to urgently remove illegal job ads targeting not only Cambodia, but the entire Southeast Asian region.
And he also explained that his crackdowns are intensified in Cambodia. Such ads could shift to other Southeast Asian countries as well. To prevent further victims, the government has launched a joint response task force and formed a consultative body that includes Naver, Kakao, and Google to begin a self-monitoring and removal system. He added that the ads are currently being deleted in real time, and accurate statistics will also be compiled going forward.
Ejae, I do have to mention it all began with a college student that was killed in Cambodia. Now, we are hearing an autopsy for that student. It will be conducted soon. What do we know so far?
Well, the autopsy will most likely be carried out early next week to determine the exact cause and circumstances of the student's death. The autopsy will be led by a forensic pathologist from Korea's National Forensic Service. And 2 investigators from South Korea will be dispatched as early as this weekend to attend the procedure and observe the entire process alongside local officials. This comes after high-level talks between the Korean delegation and Cambodian officials who agreed to work closely on clarifying autopsy findings and prevent further crimes targeting Koreans. That's all I have for you now. So back to you, Dami.
All right, Ejae, thanks for the coverage. Now, South Korea and the U.S. have wrapped up their 2-hour-long tariff negotiations to fine-tune how to finance and profit Seoul's billion-dollar investment in Washington. No details like the progress or plans for further talks are not immediately known, but South Korean officials call the Thursday's 2-hour talks sufficient. Moon Jung reports.
as high-ranking South Korean government officials have entered the final phase of their talks in the United States. Their first day of negotiations concluded with Presidential Chief of Staff for Policy Kim Yong-bum saying that they've had sufficient discussions lasting 2 hours. Presidential Chief of Staff for Policy Kim Yong-bum, Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan, and Trade Minister Yeo Han-gu met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick at the Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. The industry minister met with Lutnick again after approximately 2 weeks to continue discussions aimed at narrowing differences over the proposed $350 billion investment package. Upon their arrival, the minister and presidential chief of staff held their first official meeting with Gov't, director of the Office of Management and Budget, where they discussed measures for shipbuilding cooperation between the two countries. While the OMB is not directly involved in tariff negotiations, the South Korean delegation expects that emphasizing Korea-U.S. shipbuilding cooperation will positively influence efforts to reconcile differences regarding the $350 billion investment package.
The OMB is a very crucial entity for the shipbuilding cooperation project. We are visiting the office as we want to listen to what it has to say and share each other's views on shipbuilding industrial cooperation between our country and the U.S.
Earlier, Kim said that both nations are negotiating in the most earnest and constructive atmosphere. Regarding U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's expectation of results within 10 days, the official took it as a positive sign.
When the U.S. expects a result within 10 days, that apparently represents its interim assessment of the negotiations with us, and I read it as a sign that is not bad.
Kim also emphasized the critical importance of the Korea-U.S. summit scheduled for the end of this month, held on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju. Reinforcing the delegation's efforts, Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chol, who is in Washington for the IMF General Assembly, met with Bessent, acknowledging Korea's difficulty in meeting the U.S.'s $350 billion upfront investment demand. He noted that while U.S. secretaries understand Seoul's position, President Donald Trump's persuasion remains uncertain. He expressed concerns that paying the full amount upfront would undoubtedly pose a problem for Korea's foreign exchange stability. 문지영, Arirang News.
The U.S. has criticized China's targeting of South Korean shipbuilder Hanwha Ocean, calling it an irresponsible attempt to undermine shipbuilding cooperation between Seoul and Washington. A State Department spokesperson said on Thursday local time that China's actions only reaffirm the importance of strengthening U.S. economic cooperation with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region. The comments come just days after Beijing imposed sanctions on 5 U.S.-linked subsidiaries of the Korean firm, a key player in the Make American Shipbuilding Great Again project, which is a part of Seoul's efforts to help the U.S. rebuild its shipbuilding industry. The South Korean economy is showing signs of recovery from a first-half slowdown, backed by a strong job market and a surge in September consumption. But the government's latest monthly assessment maintains a cautious tone, pointing to lingering risks both at home and abroad. Our Kim Do-yeon has more.
The South Korean economy is showing signs of emerging from its first-half slowdown, but persistent risks continue to weigh on the outlook. That's the latest assessment from the Ministry of Economy and Finance in its monthly Green Book report released on Friday. The government diagnosed that key indicators like production and consumption are on a general improvement trend with the help of the recent distribution of spending coupons by the government. Improvements showed on the labor market. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics, the economy added 312,000 jobs from a year earlier, with the service sector delivering the biggest portion of the growth, with spending on the rise. The employment rate rose by 0.4 percentage points to 63.7%. This came alongside a rebound in private spending. Forward-looking data for September shows domestic credit card spending jumped 8.5% year-on-year, the highest rate this year. Sales of domestically produced cars also hit a yearly high, surging over 18%. And online sales were exceptionally strong, climbing nearly 20%. This recent surge follows a period of weakness. The Finance Ministry reported that retail sales in August had fallen by 2.4% from the month before. And consumer sentiment in September dipped slightly, with the index falling 1.3 points to 110.1. On the trade front, headline figures appear positive. September exports rose 12.6% from the same month last year with the help of more working days. A closer look shows export to the key U.S. market fell by 1%, fueling the government's concerns over risks from international tariff policies. The government pledged to swiftly execute its supplementary budget to support domestic demand while focusing on managing these external challenges. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The parliamentary audit for the Ejae administration entered its fifth day on Friday with 9 standing committees. The focus was on the proceedings surrounding the Constitutional Court and the National Police Agency. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin has the details.
The fifth day of the parliamentary audit for the Yi administration on Friday centered on the Legislation and Judiciary Committee and the Security and Public Administration Committee. The audit of the Constitutional Court revolved around a push for a judicial reform that introduces a constitutional complaint system. The Democratic Party suggested that this would allow individuals to seek relief from the Constitutional Court if they deem their fundamental rights have been violated during the trial process. However, the main opposition People Power Party criticized that it would undermine the judiciary's power and added that it would create a fourth stage, which could significantly delay legal proceedings.
The Constitutional Court had already submitted the need for a constitutional complaint system to the National Assembly. The intent is to strengthen the protection of rights and uphold constitutional values.
Meanwhile, the main agenda for the Public Administration Committee targeted the National Police Agency for the contentious arrests of the former Korea Communications Commission chairwoman Lee Jin-suk, who had subsequently been released. The People Power Party opened fire by accusing the police of having predetermined Lee's arrest and repeatedly issuing appearance summons, pointing to how the Yeongdeung police station had issued 6 summons over August and September. However, the Democratic Party stressed that the arrest was justified due to Lee's repeated refusal to appear and further suggested that the fact that the police waited through 6 attempts was a waste of resources on political strife. The acting commissioner stated that the legitimacy of the arrest warrant had been clearly demonstrated.
This was a measure taken in accordance with the law and due process. Since the case involves election law, the statute of limitations is short, and the police needed to conduct a swift investigation.
While the audit is intended to ensure accountability across government agencies, intense partisan divide underscores the proceedings as a political battleground. Tensions are expected to remain high, with several key committees still to report. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Just a day before his scheduled meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, U.S. President Donald Trump held an unexpected phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which both sides reported claiming to have been very productive. Now, the two leaders have agreed to meet in Hungary within the next 2 weeks. Yoon Jin reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin have agreed to hold a face-to-face meeting in Budapest after a 2.5-hour phone call on Thursday, which was described by both sides as very productive. President Trump also said that he expects the meeting to be held within the coming 2 weeks. The planned summit will be their second in 2 months and signals renewed diplomatic efforts between Washington and Moscow. Trump said Secretary of State Marco Rubio will head a team of senior advisors meeting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov next week to prepare the agenda. A specific date or location has not been determined yet. Putin's aides called the exchange extremely frank and trustful, while Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban hailed the planned meeting as great news for peace. The Kremlin said that it would immediately start preparing. The call between Trump and Putin came just a day before Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is due at the White House for talks on air defense and long-range missiles. Zelensky is expected to discuss potential supplies of U.S. long-range Tomahawk missiles, which would be capable of reaching Moscow from Ukraine. Zelensky expressed on social media that he hoped for the momentum of the Middle East peace deal to help end the war in Ukraine. When asked earlier in the week, Trump mentioned considering giving Ukraine Tomahawks. But after Putin saying that supplying the Tomahawks to Ukraine would endanger peace efforts, Trump has changed his answer, telling reporters that the U.S. could not deplete its own stock of the guided missiles. 이은진, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in North Korea, the regime's leader Kim Jong-un, in a message to Chinese President Xi Jinping, has vowed to strengthen North Korea-China ties. According to regime's state-run newspaper Nodongshinmun on Friday, Kim expressed gratitude for Xi's message of congratulations for the 80th founding anniversary of Workers' Party of Korea the day before. While saying the regime could once again feel the friendship and support from China, Kim added Pyongyang is to further strengthen and develop cooperative ties with Beijing, in line with the new demands of the era. With a growing interest in Korea and thanks to the success of Korean animation, K-pop Demon Hunters, the number of visitors to National Museum of Korea this year surpassed 5 million for the first time in its 80-year history. Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Annual visitors to the National Museum of Korea have surpassed 5 million for the first time. According to the museum on Friday, a total of 5,016,382 people visited from January 1st to October 15th this year. Among them, 4.83 million were South Koreans and 185,705 were foreign nationals. This is a 69.7% increase compared to the same period last year. This marks the first time since the museum opened in 1945 that its annual attendance exceeded 5 million in a single year. A growing surge in interest in Korea attributed to the global popularity of Korean culture, including the success of the Netflix's animated series K-pop Demon Hunters, seemingly led to the record. An annual visitor count of over 5 million places the museum in the top 5 globally. According to the art newspaper, the world's most visited museum in 2024, for example, was the Louvre in Paris with over 8.7 million visitors, followed by Vatican Museums, the British Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and Tate Modern. The National Museum of Korea has 13 affiliated national museums across the country. And with growing interest in Korea, the total number of visitors to all of these museums went over 11 million as well. Visitors to the affiliated national museums accounted for over 6.2 million, a roughly 10% increase compared to last year's. Eyes are now on whether the total visitors to the museum could approach 6 million by the end of the year. The director of the museum said it will aim to become a museum where culture can be enjoyed in everyday life with more exhibitions and improved viewing environment. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
A mega-hit singer-songwriter Ejae, who sang on the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack, has currently made her way to the country of her birth. Now, during her visit, she sat down for a one-on-one with our culture correspondent Park Won-woo. Let's take a listen.
Up, 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 Ejae goes, breaking records by topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 8 straight weeks. When Golden first hit #1, she says there was one person she couldn't stop thinking about.
The first thing I thought of was 11, 12-year-old Ejae working her butt off in the studio at SM. And it was a little message to her, if it reached, like, that you did so good.
For more than 2 decades, she's faced her share of hardships, especially during her 10+ years as a K-pop trainee. Though she failed to debut as an idol back then, she says every moment happened for a reason.
I never, ever thought I'd be a songwriter in my life. That was never in my wish list. It just kind of organically happened when, after I came out of SM, I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
She spent long hours working alone, training herself to be better at songwriting. Then came the pandemic.
When that happened, we had to stay home. So it was hard, but It was honestly, in a way, amazing. It was a great experience because that's when I actually learned how to teach myself how to record. And a lot of songwriters don't really know how to record themselves or mix.
Through lessons learned from hard times, she joined a K-pop Demon Hunters team and helped spark a global phenomenon. As excitement builds for a possible sequel, Ejae told us about her creative ideas without hesitation.
트로트, literally. That would be amazing. So we'd love to explore the 판소리 아리랑 world.
And with the soundtrack's success, Golden was submitted in multiple categories for next year's Grammy Awards, boosting her chances for a win.
Winning a Grammy Award is truly something I wish I saw a fellow Korean American woman, Asian American woman in the industry to win. It would open doors for so many people.
After all these achievements, she reflects on what her younger self might say to her today.
What do you think 11-year-old Ejae would tell you, seeing you now in one of your most golden moments of your life?
Oh my God, that's another emotional question. I think she'd just be like, thank you.
At the same time, she admits feeling pressure as expectations on her are so high.
Be like water. And I love that saying. That's kind of the concept of whatever comes your way, even if there's a lot of pressure, just do your best. Do whatever you can and 최선을 다해.
She also offered a heartfelt message to anyone chasing their dreams.
If my story helps, please work hard, be resilient, be kind to yourself, and also be kind to others. Everyone needs a little bit of kindness.
With that mindset, Ejae says she's working on her next steps, getting better at songwriting and exploring who she is as an artist, poised to shine golden as she was born to be. 박건우, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In the U.S., former National Security Advisor John Bolton was indicted on Thursday on 18 counts for keeping top-secret records at home and sharing classified notes with family members. Prosecutors say Iranian-linked hackers breached Bolton's email in 2021, exposing sensitive material he had shared. They allege he failed to tell the FBI that classified information had been compromised. The charges follow FBI searches of his Maryland home and Washington office for records retained from his time in government. Court documents say Bolton shared more than 1,000 pages of daily notes and intelligence on foreign adversaries, including missile launch plans and covert operations. Attorney General Pam Bondi said no one is above the law and that abuse of power endangering national security will be punished. Bolton's lawyer called the case baseless, arguing that, like many officials, Bolton kept personal diaries and said Bolton did not unlawfully share or store classified information. In Peru, at least one person was killed and dozens of police officers injured on Wednesday night as thousands of protesters clashed with security forces outside Congress in Lima. The protesters are demanding action on corruption and rising crime. Police fired tear gas as demonstrators chanted "Everyone must go" and tried to tear down metal barriers. Officials say 32-year-old Eduardo Mauricio Ruiz died of a gunshot wound. A police officer accused of firing the shot has been suspended. Government says 89 police and 22 civilians were injured in the protests, with 11 arrests. The protests come less than a week after former President Dina Boluarte was impeached. Her replacement, President Jose Herri, expressed regret, promising an objective investigation and blaming violence on delinquents who infiltrated a peaceful protest. Uruguay has become the first country in Latin America to legalize euthanasia after senators in Montevideo on Wednesday passed the dignified death bill by 20 votes to 11. The new law allows mentally sound adults in the terminal stage of an irreversible illness to request euthanasia carried out by a healthcare professional. Supporters say the measure reflects Uruguay's long tradition of progressive laws, which includes same-sex marriage, abortion, and the legalization of marijuana. Senator Patricia Kramer said public opinion demanded the change, with polls showing 62% support nationwide. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Rain is back again. It will start to rain everywhere tonight under cloudy skies across the country. This rain will mostly stop tomorrow morning. Looking at the expected rainfall, 20 to 70 millimeters is forecast in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province, 10 to 50 in Chungcheongnam-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces, and 10 to 40 millimeters in other areas of the country. In particular, between dawn and morning tomorrow, there will be heavy rain of around 20 millimeters per hour in Chungcheongnam-do province and the Jeollado provinces. After the rain, the morning temperature in Seoul will drop sharply to 5 degrees Celsius on Monday. Please dress warmly when you go outside. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at 16 degrees, Chuncheon at 15 degrees. Daily highs will rise up to 19 to 24 degrees across the country. For the time being, frequent rain is expected in the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have at this hour. We'll be back later at 8 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.